Hello and welcome to another MacStories Unwind. I'm John Voorhees and I have Federico Viticci with me. Hey, Federico.
Hello, John. How are you?
I'm doing really well. This is only a 20 to 30 minute podcast, but you know what? This is the third podcast in the third hour of the day that you and I have been recording together.
Woo!
So this is going to be, we're gonna let it all hang out, as they say, for this
Yeah,
one. We're gonna get a little silly, I think, but we have some really good picks this week. Really unusual picks.
Yeah, well, I gotta tell you, John, you look great in OLED.
Oh, really?
yeah.
Yeah, crispy, and good colors. You got my
Crispy.
sweatshirt going.
Glossy and
Yeah.
so vivid. It's almost like you're here. So
very
yeah,
nice.
so this is what I want to talk about on this very special episode of Unwind, because what I'm about to share puts a little bow on something that I wanted forever. And it's finally here. I got it. Sort of mission accomplished,
Yeah.
Let me cut to the chase. I finally have a 27-inch 4K OLED monitor.
Wow.
I did it. I did the thing. I did the ultimate upgrade. So, longtime listeners of App Stories, Unwind, Connected, all my MPC, all my other shows know that I've been on the lookout for many years now for a monitor that didn't exist before. A 4K OLED monitor, not in 35 inches, not in 32, in 27-inch size.
Right.
These monitors did not exist before 2025. However, when you went to CES with Brandon earlier this year, we saw the press releases from a whole bunch of companies, LG, Samsung, and others, who announced, Dell, I believe even, with their Alienware line, they announced that finally 2025 was going to be the year of 27-inch 4K OLED monitors. I
actually saw a few of them in person too. MSI had one. There were a bunch of them.
I knew that this was going to happen because, as we have established, I spend a lot of time on Reddit, and
you sure do.
In different subreddits. And what's the American expression? I heard it on the grapevine.
Yes, you heard it on the Reddit vine is where you heard it.
Yeah. That there had been a breakthrough in panel manufacturers at some point in 2024 where 4K OLED monitors in 27 inches were finally going to be a reality in 2025. And
it's weird. It's weird that 27 was like a problem, whereas weren't they making them bigger before?
They were making 32. They were making 32.
Yeah,
they were making 32. But they couldn't make it, dense enough for the 27-inch configuration, I guess. So I knew this was going to happen. And sure enough, January rolled in and we started getting the press releases. And I started keeping my eye on a few different options. And then I was like, okay, at some point later this year, this will be the upgrade for me. Now, my desk, where I am right now, I got my computer plugged in over Thunderbolt /USB-C. We'll get to this. But I also have my Xbox. And looking ahead at 2025, there's a couple of other things that I knew were also going to happen realistically. An upgrade to the TS5 Plus Thunderbolt dock with DisplayPort 2.1, and of course the Nintendo Switch 2, which can output 4K video to a 4K TV or monitor over HDMI.
Right.
So I kept that information in my brain. And then last week, out of the blue, I was like, hey, it's mid-April. Let me see if this monitor is actually shipped. So I started doing some Google search, and I landed on this very popular Italian electronics chain called Media World, Italy. And I saw that one of them was available. It was in stock. It was the only Italian retailer that had it in stock. It was sold out everywhere else, except this very reputable chain, which I've used before. I have an account. They have my credit card on file. They have my address. And they had 8 in stock.
Oh, nice.
It was 1,200 euros.
It's in short supply in the US because I went looking yesterday because I was curious about the specs and I had a hard time finding it in the US. At best, I looked at like Best Buy and B&H and a bunch of different retailers, and a lot of, not even that many of them had it listed, and the ones that did, it was primarily sold out. So
Yeah. So I took my big boy wallet and did it. So
you did it.
I got the Asus ROG. Oh gosh, these names.
Oh,
man.
it's quite a name.
Okay. Asus ROG Swift OLED PG27U CDM. Okay.
You got to make sure you get the PG and all that in there, because there are some similar models that were like the prior year models that are not OLED that are kind of similar I guess model numbers.
Yeah. So that's what I bought. I bought the Asus 27 4K OLED. Let me give you some specs. Long story short, I'm in love with this thing. I now cannot wait for the TS5 Plus and the Nintendo Switch 2. This monitor is, technically speaking, 26.5 inches.
I noticed that online.
It's basically 27. It's 4K, so pure 4K resolution. It is, by default, 450 nits of brightness with a peak of 1,000 nits for HDR content. And you say HDR content? Yes, it supports HDR10, Dolby Vision, display and display HDR 400 true black. All of the HDR standards, basically.
Yeah.
240 hertz refresh rate.
Yeah, I saw that. I was like, oh, this is very Federico.
Look, I'm not a capital G gamer, but I'm using it right now with macOS, and boy, does it look nice. It looks very nice.
Crispy and smooth.
Variable refresh rate with support for adaptive sync. So that's AMD FreeSync, and it's NVIDIA G-Sync compatible.
Okay. All right. Very good. It's got all those things covered.
0.3 millisecond response time. Pretty good.
Very impressive.
Now let me talk to you about connectivity and ports. We have two HDMI 2.1 ports.
Okay.
One DisplayPort 2.1 port.
Oh, now I know why you want the CalDigit, that particular CalDigit. Yeah.
There you go. This is the latest gen DisplayPort. This is super good. One USB-C port with support for DisplayPort Alt mode. So this is basically what Thunderbolt supports as a fallback. It's DisplayPort over USB-C, which also has 90 watts of power delivery.
Is that equivalent of a USB 4 plug?
Yeah.
I think that's
USB
what is that what that means?
USB 4 Gen 1 instead of USB 4 V2, maybe? I think it's confusing.
Yeah, now we're deep in the weeds.
Yeah. Plus a whole assortment of 3 USB-A ports and, this is quite weird, 1 USB-B port. I'm never going to use it, to be fair.
Oh, is that the chunky thick one?
The chunky thick one with the weird square shaped connector.
Yeah. That's like you see in a lot of printers and scanners and things usually. That's a weird thing to have on a display, I would think. So it does not support Thunderbolt itself, though, is what you're telling me.
No, and I'll get to this in a minute. Now, let me tell you about why I really love this monitor. I mean, except for the multiple ports that I'm gonna use, eventually I'm gonna put.
Oh, you're gonna plug everything in. You're gonna have a lot of stuff plugged into that. I know.
The image quality is insane. Like, I was in my bedroom last night because I have gone back to reading and playing video games in a separate room because I was just bothering Sylvia too much. So we have agreed upon me leaving the bedroom and going into my office to do the things I do before I go to sleep. And the true blacks in the dark, oh my God. Like it was incredible. The colors are so bright. This thing is so bright. It looks great. But let me tell you about my favorite features, because obviously this is an OLED panel, so you got to take care of it because you don't want to risk burning, you don't want to risk image retention, that sort of stuff. You have pixel cleaning features. These are like also seen on modern televisions where like the image every once in a while needs to refresh to make sure it shifts. I enabled screensaver mode on my Mac just, to make sure that if I'm not at my desk, the screensaver kicks in and move things around. But
you should just sleep the screen too after a while.
Yeah, after a while. Yeah. No, but also this monitor has a proximity sensor that when you get up, you can set a 1 minute or a 5 minute threshold in which if the monitor doesn't sense you in front of the monitor, it shuts off. This
That is
feature
nice.
is super nice. I need to decide whether I prefer the 60 centimeters or the 90 centimeters distance. It's an option that you can configure in the OSD menu. If anything, because before we were doing app stories, and at some point the monitor randomly shut off, and I had to wave in front of the monitor.
Oh.
So I think I got to bump the distance from 60 centimeters to 90. But it's been lovely to have this feature. I don't need to worry about it.
Does it turn it off completely? Like the power just is completely off, or
No,
is it
just the monitor, just sleeping the monitor.
That's what I mean, though. I mean, but it is shutting it off. Like no more electricity going to the monitor, which is good. That saves you electricity too.
Yep.
I mean, it's always good for the environment.
It's got it's got fancy gamer RGB in the back, which I disabled because I don't need any of that. And it was obviously. And this leads me to a very Federico thing that I've done. It's VESA compatible. So I didn't bother with the stand. You know what I did? When Sylvia was not home, I took the previous monitor, took the new monitor, slotted right back into the same VESA mount, and ran an experiment. I was like, when Sylvia comes back home, I want to see if she notices. She didn't.
So I thought your old monitor was on a stand.
No. It's always been VESA mounted.
It's still on the arm. I thought at one point you were thinking about getting rid of the arm. All right. Well, that's good to know. Interesting. So what? All right. Yes.
I have one complaint. One complaint so far.
I have questions. And this is exactly what I would do. I would have mounted it while Jennifer was not home. And I know she would never notice because she doesn't even like to come in my office, let alone notice things like that.
The one complaint that I have is that unlike my previous Gigabyte M27U monitor, if I plug in my laptop in clamshell mode, it doesn't automatically detect USB-C mode. I need to plug in the laptop, which is a whole other story that we'll get to in a few weeks. When I plug in my monitor, I need to plug it in first with the laptop's own monitor open, plug in USB-C, and then shut off the lid of the laptop. It's a bit of a quirk that I need to do some research. Like, why is it that my previous monitor could recognize macOS in clamshell mode and this one doesn't? But hey, it's no big deal because I'm coming into the office with my laptop open anyway, so it doesn't really matter. I can just connect the cable and then close it, so it's fine. Yeah.
Interesting. All right. Well, that's really cool. What
are your questions?
Well, I've seen it. It has one thing when you look for it online, it has a very unique stand, which I guess you have gotten rid of the stand.
Kept in the box is what I did.
Kept in the box because it's very, I don't know, it's very gamery looking stand, I would say. It looks like blades, like a tripod of blades. What happened to your old screen?
I sold it.
Already? You sold it already? How about that? You haven't delivered it to anybody yet, have you?
Not yet.
Yeah, but it's gonna, and I assume you have a stand from that, so you're selling it with the stand, so someone's gonna. Yeah. All right. Interesting. 450 nits. Can it go? Is that like the peak nits without the HDR, or can it go higher than? Okay.
It goes to 1,000 with HDR.
Right.
I can tell you, I'm looking at it. It's so bright. Like even right now, I think if you end up getting this monitor, you're gonna love this monitor. Like it's so like it looks glorious when gaming. It looks. I don't know what to tell you. It's the dream for me.
The thing that I have about this thing I have about TVs and monitors is that I never get rid of them. I never upgrade them because what do I do with the old one? And what do I do with my studio
Sell
display
your
then?
stuff. I've been telling you this.
I know. I need to start selling my stuff because I have a lot of old stuff. And I suppose one of my kids might want it. I suppose, maybe. I don't know. But I don't know how I would get it to California or to Ireland, so that wouldn't be great either. But yeah, something like the studio display I would have to actually sell, I think, instead of pawn off on someone else. I've actually gotten to the point where my kids don't want my stuff anymore. I've got too many handhelds. Everybody's got their own retro handheld now. They don't, unlike me, they don't feel like they need 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8.
That's because they don't have a podcast, you know?
And that's true. Well, those are all my questions. I'm excited about this because I think between the blacks and the colors and the refresh rate, that this is going to be an incredible gaming display.
Ooh, Breath of the Wild in 4K or Metroid Prime at 120 on this thing. Ooh.
Yeah, it's going to be good. Yeah. So you'll have an Xbox and a Switch 2 eventually connected to it. You'll probably have a Switch 2 before me. Not that I'm bitter. And you'll have you'll have your Mac, obviously, when you're using your laptop and your iPad. Do you ever anticipate, have you ever thought about like connecting an Apple TV or something to it?
No, because I don't watch Apple TV when I'm in here.
Yeah, but don't you use that room as a guest room?
Yeah, but usually people don't care about watching TV in here.
Yeah.
You know? If we end up watching something, we'll do it with the guests in the living room, you know?
True. All right. I thought, maybe somebody before bed wants to listen to a little music or something.
Well,
I know you haven't had a guest in a while.
They can use their phone or their laptops.
Yeah, whatever. That's true. That's what most people do when they're traveling anyway. That makes a lot of sense. Well, I'm excited for you. I think it sounds really good. I'm looking forward to seeing what all these are like, because there are a number of them coming out. This one thing I did read, not to like dig back into the tariff stuff, but I did read that Asus was no longer selling some of their laptops in the United States. So I wouldn't be surprised if whatever stock of this display is in the U.S. now maybe to last for a while, but we shall see. We shall see. As I said, I did look for it a few places. I think I found it at Best Buy, but I was surprised at how Amazon didn't have it. I forget who else I looked at, but a bunch of them didn't have it, or it was out of stock. So it's seems like it's a pretty limited supply so far. Federico, I have a pick for you, something that our friend Brendan Bigley recommended to me. He wrote about it on his website. It is a documentary on YouTube about the Barkley Marathons. And this documentary is called The Barkley Marathons, The Race That Eats Its Young. So that is the name of the main documentary I want to recommend. There's a second one, because the Barkley Marathons are all over YouTube, it turns out, and in a lot of written articles. But this one's called The Finisher, Jasmine Paris and the Barkley Marathons. So the first one is about this race. It's an ultra marathon that takes place in the mountains of Tennessee, and it happens once per year. Thousands of people apply to get in, and to get in, your application, you have to have discovered their secret email address, pay $1.60, and write an essay as to why you should be allowed into this race. And so hundreds, or if not thousands, of people apply. Only 40 people are accepted. And in the first 25 years of this race, only 10 people ever finished.
Wow.
And as of last year, only about 20 have ever finished. It is a race where the distance is not entirely clear. It's roughly somewhere between 100 and 120 miles. It's 5 laps through the mountains. The elevation climb is the equivalent of climbing Mount Everest twice.
Okay.
It is considered one of the most grueling races ever. The mountains of Tennessee, parts of this, about a third of it are on trails, but about 2/3 of it are off trails. So there are no markers, there's nothing, and they don't give you GPS. All you have is a map and a compass, and whatever you can carry on your back, whether it's water, food, whatever it is. And you do 5 laps. The first couple of laps, you go, maybe getting this backwards, but you go clockwise the first time, then you go counterclockwise, then you go clockwise, then you go counterclockwise. And then at the last lap, whoever's left, the first person who goes back out on the trail for the 5th lap gets to pick whether they go clockwise or counterclockwise. This is all designed to make it very difficult and disorienting because you're going different directions over the same loop. And to top all of that off, it starts on a day that is picked in advance, but you don't know what time of day it's going to start within a 12-hour period until the guy who runs it blows on a conch shell, and that means you have 1 hour to get ready to start the race. And the race starts not with like the bang of a starter's pistol. It starts with him lighting a cigarette and taking a puff. Okay. And then everybody starts racing. Now, this is a very bizarre race, as you can probably tell. I found this fascinating because I've been a runner for many years, and I've run a regular marathon, and I love these kinds of weird endurance events for people who are really off the deep end. It takes
Yeah.
place at a state park called Frozen Head State Park. I had a cousin who had done ultra marathons back in the day. He did things like run from one edge of the Grand Canyon up to the other side and then back again, things like that, which is over 100 miles, I think. And this race though is like a whole nother level. I guess the other thing worth mentioning is that you have to complete the race within 60 hours. So these people are running for nearly 3 days
My God.
nonstop without sleeping. They come into camp when they finish a lap, and they can sleep if they want, but the clock keeps going and the other people keep running. So they stop in the camp and they eat, they drink some water, whatnot, and then they go back out on the trail. And it was inspired by the escape of James Earl Ray in 1967 from a prison that was in these mountains. He was the person who assassinated Martin Luther King Jr. And when he escaped from this prison, he climbed up into the mountains, and he was caught like 2 or 3 days later, having only made it 8 miles. And these people who live nearby and organized this race thought, oh, I could get further than that. I bet I could get 100 miles. And so they used that. That was the kind of the idea that sparked the race. And it goes up and down through the mountains, through these incredible brambles. And this first documentary, which is probably the best one, if you're only going to watch one, I would watch the one called "The Race That Eats Its Young," because it follows the 2012 race where they had their 40 participants, and I won't spoil how it ends. But they follow them through the woods and have a lot of footage out on the mountaintops where you can see these people are running through these areas that have briar patches with long thorns, and they come into the camp, and their legs are just cut up like someone had taken a razor blade to their thighs and their calves and their knees, and they have blisters, and they're wet and they're tired and they haven't slept in days, and it just sounds absolutely miserable. Some people come in, they're bleeding, they maybe fell and hit their head. I don't think anybody has ever died doing it, I don't think, but it is fairly dangerous in that sense. And at one point, you have to go through a drainage tunnel that goes underneath the prison that James Earl Ray escaped through. It just looks absolutely grueling and punishing. And I enjoyed the kind of seeing the behind the scenes. It happens it takes place in like March or April, before the leaves are on the trees, when the weather can be just about anything in the mountains in Tennessee, where it could be nice and sunny and fairly hot. It could be foggy, it could be rainy, it could be really cold and sleeting or snowing when you get at the higher elevations. So it really has a lot of variables that make it extremely hard and difficult to get through. And the second documentary that I will mention is the one called The Finisher. And what's interesting about that one is that it's about a woman who was trying to finish and be the first woman who finished the race. And again, I will not spoil whether she made it or not, because it's a 60-hour limit. You have to finish those 5 laps within 60 hours, not just finish them, period. And it's all about her journey of training. She was from Scotland, and she would go running up and down the highlands up in Scotland, up and down the similar kind of mountainscapes that you find in places like the United States, in the eastern United States. And she participated in this race. And it's just really amazing to watch these people who come from all walks of life, who are really interested in this. And because it's become so legendary, people come now from all over the world. There are participants from India in the one I watched, and Scotland and England and other parts of Europe, South America, and it was pretty cool. If you make it three laps, that is considered the fun run, and a lot of people do it, and if they can make it that far, they just stop and quit. And after each person quits during the race, and there have been years where no one finished, where the 40 people go out, and typically a big year is 2 or 3 people finishing the whole 5 laps. And as people drop out, they have a guy who uses a bugle and plays taps because they're tapping out of the race and quitting. And I just found this whole thing to be really, really cool and fascinating. So I don't know. I highly recommend watching the first documentary. And if you're really into it and dig it, I'd go and watch Jasmine Paris try to become the first woman to finish the race, because this started in the 80s and it's still going. And the number of people who have finished it ever in all those years is about 20. So it's it takes a lot of the people who have run it are people with a lot of experience doing ultra marathons and other kind of, extreme sports.
All right. Well, thank you.
you turn this on for Sylvia tonight.
Sure.
Jennifer actually watched the Jasmine Paris one with me, and she really found it interesting. It kind of sucks you in watching these people and what motivates them to do something so incredibly grueling and punishing.
All right.
All right, everybody. That's it for another edition of MacStories Unwind. You can find us at MacStories.net. Federico and I are on social media. Just go to wherever you'd like to go and look for @Viticci. It's VITICCI. And I'm at John Voorhees. JOHNVOORHEES. Talk to you next week, Federico.
Ciao, John.